Yeah, let's just be honest. The Bronze Age doesn't have the best movies. I was definitely more excited to watch the Silver Age movies. But nonetheless, here's the ranking. Number 8, The Black Cauldron. This is just such a bad movie in every single way. First off, they aren't using the characters to their full potential. They had this super cool idea to have a pig that can predict the future, but then they only used this once to make Taran go to the Horned King castle. And then the pig is just completely thrown out the movie. We only see her halfway through the movie for like 5 seconds. And then the Horned King. He is one of the scariest looking villains. I remember being terrified of him as a child. But you know what? He does absolutely nothing. He is a complete joke. Taran was locked in the Horned King's castle, and in like 5 minutes he escaped. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think the entire problem with the movie is the characters. None of the characters are likable. Gurgi is one of the worst sidekicks Disney has. He is so annoying, and I wish he just wasn't in the movie. Ella Wanley is fine, I guess. She can be a little annoying at times, but in the overall, she's very bland. And one of the most annoying, unnecessary characters I have ever seen are the witches. I hate them in every single way. The scene is horrible, the humor surrounding them is atrocious, and I wish they just vanish. And then the protagonist, Taran. Yeah, he isn't that great either. He thinks he's a hero. Well, he's clearly not. He didn't do anything heroic at all. And to be fair, if your protagonist isn't likable, your movie already failed on so many levels. But you know what the actual worst part about the movie is? If the pig wouldn't have predicted the future, then Taran wouldn't have gone to the Horned King, then he would never search for the Black Cauldron, and then nothing would have happened because the Horned King does nothing. Just like I said before, and I was not over-exaggerating. He would have never gone looking for the Black Cauldron, and the movie wouldn't exist. Number 7, Oliver & Co. Most people probably don't even know this movie exists, and I'm fine with that. This movie just isn't memorable at all, and there's truly nothing special about it. There are no amazing messages like in The Lion King, there aren't any phenomenal songs like in The Hunchback of the Notre Dame, although Why Should I Worry is kind of catchy. But for anyone who actually liked this movie, please be honest with me. Do you remember any of the characters' names except for Oliver? Because the title is literally Oliver & Co. Because I don't. To me, this is just a fine movie that I feel like I forgot everything about just after I watched it. I do have to say, the only actual bad thing about this movie is probably the animation, especially the backgrounds. Number 6, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. If you were to ask me what I think of when I hear the word charming, I would probably say The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Everything about this movie is charming, from the characters to the story to the music. Sure, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh doesn't have a huge plot, but what do you expect from a Winnie the Pooh movie? That's not the point of it. And I respect it for what it is. But I also think this movie is pretty boring. At first I thought, maybe I'm being a bit too harsh. I mean, this movie is definitely made for kids, so maybe I just found it to be a little bit boring because I'm not a kid anymore. But no, apparently, even as a child, I thought this movie was incredibly boring too. I do remember watching many other Winnie the Pooh movies and loving those. I was a huge fan of Winnie the Pooh. I even had like those stuffed animals, and so it kind of hurts me to put it this low, but this particular Winnie the Pooh movie is just very boring to me. Number 5, The Rescuers. I've heard a lot of complaints about the animation in the Aristocats, and I fully agree. but I'll come back to that later. The Rescuers might have the second worst animation in the Bronze Age, because I literally thought this movie came out 30 years before its release date. But then I looked back at the animation and compared it to the other movies in the Bronze Age, and at first I didn't understand why I found this one significantly worse. But then I suddenly realized why. In this movie, they showcase a lot of scenes where they are flying around, showing the landscape, but it just doesn't look that good. And another thing about this movie, it has a very dark color palette, which I feel like everyone is complaining about with the new live action movies, and I also fully agree on that. But this movie has a very dark color scheme too, and that just doesn't help the animation. But you know what? At least it fits the story because that's also dark and depressing. The one thing that I've noticed about the Rescuers is that the actual rescuers, so Bernard and Bianca, get sidelined so badly in both movies. And it's very interesting to me because the movie is literally called The Rescuers. But I truly think the story is more about Penny than the rescuers themselves. The characters aren't very memorable, but I have to say I enjoyed the story. The evil woman, I totally forgot her name, adopts Penny to get a diamond out of a well for her. And then the rescuers go on a mission to save her. It's cute, it's sad, and despite its flaws, I still enjoy watching this movie. Number 4, Robin Hood. Sometimes when I watch this movie, I absolutely love it. The characters are likable, the music fits the movie so well, and Maid Marian and Robin Hood are adorable together. The movie also has an amazing climax. It's just a cute, fun, charming movie, but other times I truly dislike it. First of all, some parts of the movie are incredibly slow. They drag on for way too long. For example, the archery contest where Robin Hood is disguised. This scene immediately tackles another issue with the movie, unnecessary scenes. The movie has a lot of them. You know what else the movie has a lot? Reused animation, and it's very noticeable. Even though the songs fit well in the movie, I don't find them very memorable, and I didn't particularly like them. For me, every time I watch this movie, I either really enjoy it or find it to be very boring. Number 3, The Aristocats. I know The Aristocats is often at the bottom of most people's list, and you know what? I don't get it. Sure, this isn't an amazing movie, and the animation is absolutely horrible. You can literally see the scratchy lines everywhere. But at the same time, I really don't think The Aristocats is a bad movie. It's just nothing special. Sure, the villain isn't the greatest, but there are worse villains out there, and the movie doesn't take Edgar seriously either, so it's still fun to watch. Yes, this movie has a lot in common with 101 Dalmatians and Lady and the Tramp, and yes, The Aristocats is a worse version of both of these movies. But at the same time, I still kind of like this movie. It has very charming characters. Even the side characters are extremely fun to watch. The song Everybody Wants to Be a Cat is extremely catchy, but please Disney, stop with the stereotypical cats. Overall, I think this is just a fun movie to watch. Number 2, The Fox and the Hound. This movie immediately has a cute, cozy feel. It's very heartwarming to see Todd and Copper bond, especially because their friendship is so unlikely. They're literally a fox and a hound. I remember the first time I watched this movie, I thought, wow, this is such a cute and charming, heartwarming movie. But then the movie decides to take a full 180, and the movie is suddenly sad and depressing. This movie has by far the saddest ending of all Disney movies. I'm honestly not sure if it was a good ending or a bad ending, but I surely respect it, except for the fact that the villain got away with everything so easily without ever really learning his lesson. I do have to say this movie is very sad and you're going to feel the pain. So I'm not sure if you want to put yourself through that. But I certainly respect this movie for having a realistic ending instead of the ending we might want. There is just something so amazing about this movie. Number 1, The Great Mouse Detective. Before I watched every single Bronze Age movie for this video, I had never seen The Great Mouse Detective, and I thought, this movie's probably not going to be that great. But I was wrong. This movie shocked me with how good it actually is. First of all, every character in this movie is absolutely amazing. The protagonist, Basil, is one of the most unique protagonists I've seen in a Disney movie because he's extremely fun to watch, yet kind of rude and arrogant, especially to the little girl, Olivia. And then we haven't even talked about the one and the only Ratigan. He is such an amazing villain, especially compared to the other villains in the Bronze Age. And you know why he is so amazing? I mean, there are many reasons, but one of the main reasons is that he isn't dumb. He actually sets up this genius trap, thinking through every step Basil would take just for him to fall into his trap, and then put on a diss track to make Basil's last moments as miserable as possible. If that isn't cruel, I don't know what is. Ratigan is one of the cruelest, meanest villains to come out of Disney. But at the same time, he makes for some really comedic moments. But enough about the characters, because that isn't the only good thing about the movie. The pacing is amazing, the songs are great, the fight scenes have just the right amount of tension and thrill. Speaking about thrill, there's even a jump scare in this movie. This movie is amazing, and I'm so sad that most people don't even know it exists. If you haven't already, then please watch this movie because it will amaze you how amazing it truly is.